Hello, this is Blair Stanislao with the Happy Lion Center. Welcome to our podcast, Mystical and Infamous, where we have playful and easy conversations about anything mystical, getting to the heart of all things strange and weird. Join us in a bit of magical tomfoolery, spreading the alchemy of love and light. And now, we invite you to enjoy the show.
I think that it's important to be in touch with the energy that I carry. Mm-hmm. I know that in the last 2 years, I turned 77 this year. So in the last 2 years, what I have noticed was the slowing, there's a slowing down somewhere inside. I don't understand it because I have a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. So, I'm going to do stuff, push past whatever, just because I love what I do. But I noticed that I sleep more and I sleep better.
Oh, wow.
And I'm sure that's just because you can only move this energy so fast and not be affected by it as the body ages. I don't. I mature, but I don't age. Mm-hmm. And my body does. I need to respect her. I finally, when that diagnosis of cancer took place 2 years ago, it's when I first started paying attention to her. Mm. And when I paid attention to her, she at first was real cautious about communicating with me. But I feel like we've become a team. Mm. And that I check in with her and she checks in with me now. And I find that interesting. I didn't expect.
So how does that work when she checks in with you?
What's that?
How does that work when she checks in with you?
She will just be real quiet. I don't know how to put it any other way, but all systems will be just quiet in me, and I won't be generating a lot of movement in me. Mm-hmm. I'm a type 1. I'm going to move, and it will quiet down, and then I will. It's usually when I lay down at night, it'll be like, oh, finally. Pay attention, just do a body check. And so I
check in with you to get you to to turn around and check in with her then. Yes. It's like a mutual check-in at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it isn't about forming thought and opinion. Learning counseling helps with understanding self-reflection, that kind of thing. And I think it's important to realize that the body has absorbed this knowledge without necessarily understanding it, because the body has entirely different responsibility to keep the body alive. That's the whole of the body.
What
it doesn't always work with my brain.
What information is it absorbing that you're talking about? What kind of information?
From the body to me.
Oh, okay. So
okay. And realizing that she ages, and that's basically what she said. I'm aging. You have a lot of things you still want to do, and because you want to do them, you need to take care of me, because I can't get you there if you don't help. I'm getting old, and I want to be with you, because once you're gone, I have to stay, and I will be staying behind as the earth, as part of the earth, and that's my job. I'm a body, but you aren't, and so you got to help me here, which means more hydration, eating healthier, eating more regularly, taking your medication responsibly, any of those supplements, things like that, any of those kinds of things. Now, that doesn't mean that isn't information that's out there. I'm just saying this is information that's new to me. Mm-hmm. Well, because I just push past.
Yeah, I think that's what I know that's what our culture does. And I get told, actually yesterday, it happens every day, but yesterday my husband was teasing me about being sensitive. This happened to be the sun that was in my face, and he was giving me a hard time. And then of course we turn the corner and the sun's in his face, which is funny. But he he teases me all the time because he's like, you're falling apart, you're gonna go before me, blah blah blah. Well, not only am I aware of my sensitivity, but because it's been this journey, so it's kind of interesting. You say you have it in a very gentle way, where you're saying you didn't really pay heed to your body's messages for a long time.
Didn't have to.
Right, but some people, which are usually labeled like me, like, oh, you're so weak, or you're so sensitive to whatever.
You
Oh, I know. That's what somebody
think you are weak.
No, not really. But my husband hears me kind of like have responses to these sensitivities, and he sees that as weakness because that's what society shows,
okay.
right? Okay. But he's just seeing me respond to it, whereas, like just the general public, I wouldn't respond in a way. I wouldn't do anything that they would even notice to acknowledge this shift. But I remember Michael Sheridan, the dream interpretation guy. He said one time, and he had said it several times over, and I don't know if we've talked about this, but he said it one time and it finally hit home. And it was partially because I had just been teased about the way I have to eat, or, like I was making life difficult for everybody or whatever. And he says, these people who are on this spiritual journey, which of course we all are, right? But the ones that are becoming aware that they're more on this spiritual journey, just in case your life wasn't hard enough, because virtually all of us pick traumas that will help us spiritually, right? We just have to open up to that. So these people who are on this path, specifically, let's say they're already on this path pretty heavily because they've had a lot of trauma, and it's irrelevant what those traumas are, right? Meaning,
right,
traumas themselves are not irrelevant. The fact that you went through the trauma is what's really relevant, right? So
and come out on the other side, hopefully.
Yes, yeah. So we all go through this stuff. And then just in case, he said, just in case that's not enough to get you to move forward spiritually, oftentimes people who are on this path pretty heavily will have physical issues that cause them to go there too. I mean, even if you think about, like, I don't know, I think about this when I see stuff about him. Who was the one that became, I think he had ALS or something. He was in the wheelchair, but I want to say his name was Stephen Hawking's. Is that right? He was like a paraplegic.
I know who you're talking about.
So he even
Hawkins.
voiced it. Okay, that's right. So he even voiced it one time because he was talking about being stuck inside of a body. So he's still consciously, mentally there, but he's stuck in this body that doesn't work. And of course, I think to myself, oh wow, that really does make a huge difference. I mean,
whole different perspective in life.
Yeah.
Gotta
Just
be.
like I think anybody too who has a physical or mental disability, if they're able to be aware on their own, which they are, right? Like, it's to what degree and what degree do we understand it? But there's an awareness too of having that condition most of the time, right?
Yes.
So,
well, for one thing, you have to pay attention to it if you have to doctor it.
Yes, Rick, exactly.
Or anything like that, or have certain instruments or tools you need.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And so then your life kind of becomes about that. And then, I think the evolution is similar to a person who doesn't have those issues. For the most part, I think the ones that don't have the issue, they don't have real issues that really seem to get in their way. Probably maybe it takes them longer to get to that place of spirituality, generally speaking. But I don't think.
I also think that trauma happens in different people's lives at different points.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have it really early in life.
Yeah.
I had one young woman who came to me for Reiki, who had lost her leg as a 3-year-old.
Oh, wow.
Lost it from the knee down in a farm accident. And, that trauma has characterized her.
Yeah.
It has identified who she is and how she will live her life always. Other people will lose a limb later in life from diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And then others just seem to sail through and be calm about a lot of things. Maybe they just need to be there to support someone else who has a lot of issues, because a
Mhm.
lot of times they're a caregiver. They're the ones who stay the course with somebody who has great issues. So, trauma is weird
Mhm.
for us in whatever it was we chose or were willing to have come into our lives to affect that spirituality, the development of it. And some people don't want to develop. They just want to stay low
No,
vibration.
I think I was just thinking about that. In a way, it's kind of relaxing to operate through the subconscious mind and not really have to really contemplate what it means, what life means, or why are we doing things the way we're doing them. It's easier just to respond on our automation kind of stuff. And so in a sense, it's kind of relaxing. I know in our group a lot of times we'll talk about things, and there's a huge acknowledgement for basically I would say I got distracted by life, which is we're operating in that subconscious, and
Yeah,
it
yeah,
entertains you enough, or maybe you think that's all there is or whatever. But I mean, definitely when I was younger, I can't say that I wasn't aware of these things, but I didn't have anybody to talk to about it. Like, it
yeah.
wasn't something that was like totally pushed in my face. um
Well, I just wasn't around for a long time. I just wasn't around anyone who would do that. I was learning the rules,
yes, which is
my
getting
Catholic
distracted by
background.
this life, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
when would you say that you found, was it when I remember you told me about the group that you joined. When do you feel like you made the shift where you were better able to have more conversations about spiritual growth and
it was in my 20s. I had a very definite experience with a baby dying that I cared for.
okay.
He was only 3 months old and
Oh.
he died. It was my first experience, my personal experience with death.
Mhm.
I'd really been spared all of that.
Mhm.
And I went through dark, dark time with that whole event. And then we ended up moving along the High Line because my husband was a telephone man and he was working an extra crew. And they got located then finally in Poplar, Montana. He found a position where he could stay put, and he worked that whole area all those years. Anyway, it was in my 20s when this event happened. I think I was 21.
Oh, young, really young.
Yeah, yeah, I was a baby. I had one child, and then this happened. And so by the time I get to Poplar, I was, let's see, I was pregnant with Jackie. So um, it's probably 4 years later. 20, yeah, I was 24. And I'm still carrying the burden of that grief and the depression. I was stuck.
Mm-hmm.
But I met some wonderful people, and they became my friends and confidants. And we got involved, and my brother in Three Forks and his wife at the time were involved in a Pentecostal movement in the Catholic Church. Along with that, and my best friend who said, "We want that," um, we we embraced that lifestyle and that prayer life, and I began to grow in leaps and bounds. I had a long, long way to go. It wasn't until I was um, 30, 32, 34 when I entered AA, and that cinched it. I'd gotten all sorts of spiritual development and confidence, but it was AA that defined what was happening to me because I was drinking,
Mm-hmm.
and that drinking was causing me problems.
Well, right. So it took it and made it extremely personal.
Yeah, and that traumatizing time with the drinking wasn't because I drank all the time, and it wasn't that I drank every day or even every weekend. but whenever I drank, there was a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so these AA men, and it was men, kind of took me under their wing, and they took this budding spirituality I had going on, and it bloomed. It just bloomed. Things just kind of went clink, 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 clink.
Okay.
And I moved on past those earlier traumas that had been dogging me for well over 10 years.
So correct me if I'm wrong, because I've only dealt with a very very little. My father just joined it. Actually, I found it was really interesting. I found the application. There must have been an application.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so when my brother died, I was going through a bunch of papers and I found his application, which of course was like in the 80s, right? So and it was interesting because he had handwritten the application first, but then he had typed it. So I actually had both of them.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was super interesting. Uh,
I definitely didn't have to jump any of those kind of hoops, or what the problem.
Yeah, well, it was really interesting because it asked questions like, why are you coming? And it asked, I don't remember exactly what the question was, but basically it was like, kind of, how is this affecting your life? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave an answer, which is my wife is, I don't remember what he said, but basically my wife is either demanding that I go or kind of like threatening that if I don't go, that some XYZ is going to happen. I mean, he didn't write all that, but that was the feeling of it. But what I know about, and I also have another friend who is an alcoholic. He's been an alcoholic probably for 20 some years, and he knows it. And
Is he still a practicing alcoholic, or is he recovering?
I think both. I don't know if that's
Okay.
possible, but I think both.
Okay.
I
He's
haven't
still
talked to him in a while, but he grew up in a Catholic home, but and this is some of his trauma is that I think he associates a lot of this with religion because his mother was pretty strict about the religion. But I don't think it's actually the religion. His mother was a helicopter parent, and he's like, I think he's in his early 40s. So that tells you where we are in time. But he his mother was a helicopter parent. She was very diehard black and white about uh religious beliefs. And so he associates those two. And of course, with all the trauma, we all have normal trauma, right? Like everybody
Yes.
experiences something. This was more intense, and he was extremely intelligent. I don't remember if he said he like got sent off to boarding school, but that's the way it felt. Like that was the story that felt like what had happened. Um, but I talked to him very detailed about a lot of stuff. And this person that's very angry at religion articulates AA like he says, you believe in a doorknob. Like it's this for him because he's still angry. Okay. This fictitious thing, whatever you want to talk about, because I refuse to call it God, you just say, here, let me give it to you. And then it gets solved. So is that the way that it works? So in a sense, it really is kind of a faith building.
Oh, absolutely.
Handing
Anything
over
greater than
doors.
oneself is considered a God of your understanding.
Say it again.
And you choose the God of your understanding. So
Right.
anything that can be beyond you or more than what you can do or be will be what you choose. You know?
Okay. Yeah. So he chose a doorknob just to be kind of a smarty pants. But
Sure.
yeah.
But it works. Why it works, I
It
don't
works
know.
if you do it. Like, I mean, like I said, he's kind of both, right? So he still has this resistance to handing things over to this unknown or unexplainable thing that he doesn't want to call God. So he does have resistance to that. And matter of fact, that's actually, I wouldn't say it's a rift between us because we have enough to talk about otherwise, but
Yeah.
the fact that I've kind of gone down this wormhole and I love it. I talk about this stuff all the time. So it's like, okay, you want to talk about something? Okay, well, there it is again. There it is again.
Well, one of the biggest confusions for people who are religious based is the spirituality is separate. It's like the physical body is separate
Yes.
from the mental and emotional body, and it's really hard to get our heads wrapped around that. It takes us a lifetime to end up facing our deaths because the body will stay and we will go. So it's similar in that religion will stay, but spirituality grows.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
Religion
think,
is always what Richard Rohr refers to as first half of life thinking. It is institutional. It serves the new,
mm-hmm.
and it gives education and background and help to the beginner. And when you have that, I mean, that's why they have catechetics in churches. When you have that, that's all good. That's all well and good. But it's supposed to jumpstart you into a direction for spirituality. So that needs to be kind of like parallel,
Yeah.
but people get stuck, and this part doesn't go. It just, some of it does,
Yeah.
but it by and large will go right back to what does the moral law say?
Right. But they're going back to that subconscious patterns where this is what I know to
Culture.
do. I don't have to think about it. It's
And
just,
it fits
you don't
right
have to
into
go into the
culture
heart.
because it just kind of gets blended with
Mm-hmm.
being patriotic. It's part of being religious, being a good parent,
Yeah.
being a good person, whatever the heck that all means. Because when you get to be my age or you are on a path for spirituality, you kind of go, it all happens. It's supposed to. And it's supposed to do it developmentally. But
Yeah.
you will have these unusual children that are spiritually growing. This generation of kids that I've been watching it for since I was at Central in 2000. It was, I don't know, maybe about 2005 or whatever. I started noticing there were certain young people that were different,
Mm-hmm.
and there's more and more of them.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I have so much hope in the young,
Yep.
is that they have with the seeds within their generation to bring about the changes that need to come about. Well, my generation had it too, yours has it,
Yeah.
but we capitulated to money. Mine did. We
Yeah.
went with, the good old dollar. I mean, that's we
So, yeah.
we handicapped the whole of the world with it. So we left a
Well, but I
legacy.
don't think that you guys were the first generation to do that. I think you just continued it on.
No, but ours definitely
Yeah.
did it from where we were with
Yeah.
all that love and
Well, and I bet, I mean, of course you're living that generation, but I bet also it's easier to see it that way when you've got the next generation that's not quite as much like that. And then the subsequent generation, which
yeah,
is millennials, right? Who, no, they're not interested in that at all. And they don't have any problem telling you that.
not at all.
Yeah.
I just find all of it refreshing because all of it has to take place for uh, we don't learn from history. We
Hmm.
don't learn from history, but we do change.
Hmm.
And so each generation provides some other aspect to history that what didn't go before.
Hmm.
And I am always kind of fascinated by what it will be.
Yeah.
Watching these young people that are, well, Sandy's granddaughter is 11, that's living here in Spokane, and my granddaughter who just graduated is 18. And it's kind of fun to see these very strong, independent young women. They're not going to talk about feminism. They don't need to. They are, you know. And I've heard people from the generation before me where it was all, or about a half a generation before me, where it was all being burn the bra thing.
Hmm.
And they don't remember. They don't know the history. They don't need to. They are what we considered to be the future.
Yeah.
And I'm proud as heck of them.
Yeah. I find as you're talking and describing that, I was thinking, you're talking about the basic stuff, the structure, essentially the structure in the religion is kind of set up to create a framework that is supposed to be for you to grow spiritually, right? But
Absolutely.
because
That's its
that spiritual
purpose.
growth is a separate, it's not it's not completely separate, but it is a very distinct energy.
Yeah.
If you don't make
Very
that
distinct.
transition from the constructs, right, to
Yeah.
the spiritual part, that's where it gets stagnated. But what I find really interesting is that, it's very, very similar, I think, even to just being a human. Even as a baby, like I'm absolutely convinced, and I don't know that I didn't think this, but now I'm like, it needs to be said.
Yeah,
Babies are geniuses at reading energy, right?
amazing.
So, but they
I
don't
wish I
have,
would have known.
yeah, they don't have
Mhm.
control of their body. They can't speak our language when they first come
Right.
for several years, right? So they're just learning the constructs or the structure around living in this 3D world.
And observing. Great
Yes.
scientists.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the structure that helps them to interact with the world, which is the same thing as even, religion that creates a structure and gives you the language to talk about things. But it's your, for a religious word, we'd say free will to actually take the step to make that growth. And not everybody does that, right?
No, no, and I don't think everyone contracts to come to this earth to do it.
Oh no, I don't think so either.
I mean, otherwise, why would we have evil, or why would we have people who are attracted to a lower lifestyle or a lower thinking? It isn't just about intelligence. Some of that is choice. Some
Hmm.
of that is also um, where you're raised or the traumas you've had, and you decided, I'm not having any more of that. This is the way I'm going to go. And anybody picks on me, I'm going to beat the crap out of them. I mean, it's just, I think we all contract differently.
Well,
And I think
I, what I
that's why
what I
it's so
love about
interesting.
this is that it really is a matrix because let's take one person who, let's say they get hooked on drugs for whatever reason.
Yeah.
They don't have any interest in growing, and then they exist and they have this life. Well, how many people are they going to interact with that see them have this life, right? Whether there's somebody that's close to them or somebody from afar, even those interactions that they have with other people, or even just being who they are, even a completely distant person, let's say that they get arrested and it's on the news. Somebody watching them on the news can use that information to help further their spiritual growth. So I don't think that even if the person themselves is not necessarily going on their own spiritual journey, they're still helping other people to do that.
And one of the things, Agnes Sanford was one of my favorite authoresses and died, but I can't hardly wait to spend time sitting on a bench with her on the other side. Phenomenal thinker and a healer. She held big rallies and was just an amazing woman. But she used the newspaper and different events, world events that you can't do any control over,
Hmm.
like drug and alcohol issues or hurricanes. I mean, what difference does it make if you can't control it? You can't. People try, but they don't get very far. But she would use those for her prayer, for prayer for healing.
Mm.
And it wasn't to judge, it was to be grateful, and it was to be focused on that person for their greatest good. Well, what is Reiki? Reiki has been phenomenal for putting the language together for me,
Yes. Oh yeah.
you know, and it's because it makes sense that we only want the highest good. We don't need to judge that. Oh, did you see him? It was just a sloppy drunk last night at that party. He's always drinking. He's always this. He's always that. Well, yeah, maybe he did. God
Yeah.
love him.
Yeah. I think that's something that I knew. I don't know if it was when I came in, but I can't remember a time when I didn't know that, what you're talking about. Um, so I think even if people observe that, I feel like they talking about, like you just said, oh, the so and so's a drunk, or look what they did. That's a response to an observation. And what they do with it is up to them. But uh, the first step is to observe.
Yes.
So if you're observing that, then you're already on the path, right? But then
Yeah.
the question is, what do you do with that? And that I
Yes.
think that's a really good illustration of higher and lower frequencies. With the lower
Yes.
one is sitting there talking and judging, right?
And negative.
Higher one, right?
And
And
the negative attaches, I don't care whether prayer is positive or negative.
hmm.
If it's got any judgment to it, it attaches
Yep.
more of that negativity to the person with the issue because they're more open to negativity.
Yep. Right. They're kind of sitting or wallowing in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Pity.
Yeah, I remember being in college. This was so annoying to me. And it seems so silly, but this is the story that I had. So I went off to college and I just roomed with whoever they put me with. And I would not say that I necessarily connected with very easily this roommate of mine. There was nothing like really wrong. I just didn't connect with her. I had been there 2 weeks early for volleyball and she becomes my roommate. I made it 6 months. I made it, or not even 6 months, probably 4 months before I changed roommates. But and I'm not gonna say it was like a dividing line because I already knew that I didn't really enjoy her company. But there was a night that we had finally gotten in bed. So two of us are in a dorm room. We just gotten in bed, so we weren't asleep yet. And she says, "Blair, do you pray?" And first I thought, "Are you seriously asking me that? Like, I guess you think maybe I don't pray." So I didn't like that was going on in my head, and I just said yes. And she asked me if I could pray for something. And I asked for clarity, and she said, "Pray that I get," I don't remember what it was.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Gimme, gimme.
Yeah, gimme, gimme, gimme. And I thought to myself, how is that how you pray? Like, do you pray to reach outside? I mean, I didn't have the words for this when I was 18, right? Or
Yeah,
17.
no,
But do
you
you pray
don't.
by reaching outside of yourself to try and pull something into you by a blessing? And what I did think at 17 was, okay, apparently you think you're smarter than this source or God that is orchestrating the world, that you need to tell this energy what to do. And that totally did not resonate with me. I was just like, okay, I'm not really sure what level I'm most bothered by this whole thing. But yeah, I did not enjoy that. But
One friend of mine used to call those info prayers when you're in a large group of people, and they would go on and on about someone who had a surgery or
yeah,
whatever, and you get all the detail. So they got a chance to talk.
yep.
I'm not sure to whom,
Hmm.
but they got to have their say. Yeah, info, and we all got to know. And it was always so offensive to me.
Yeah, I don't know why, other than it's like it feels like, okay, well, there's a lot of judgment in all of those words.
Yeah.
But then it's like where it's it does feel like it's kind of stuck in a lower vibration. I don't know what it is. It's just a lower
It
vibration.
very definitely
Get
is. And
that.
it's probably where it's the most childish. I
Yes.
mean, in that
For cattle
structuring
killing.
and
Yes.
constructs that we were talking about earlier in religion, that is a form of prayer that's taught to children.
Oh, yeah.
You can ask God for anything. Well, what's a little kid going to ask for?
Right.
And that's good, but we need to grow up from there.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Our concept of who God says God is needs to grow up.
Yeah.
Because who Mama told me God is, and who I came to understand God is, might not be who God says God is.
Mhm.
And that's where that rub with religion gets real hard, and it gets ingrained and it hangs on to the spirituality instead of the spirituality moving. And it needs to flow. But it takes
Clarify that a little bit more. You said that's the rub with
you can
religion.
get you can say so stuck in the rules, the regulations, the information that's been given through the decades in your life,
Mhm.
parents, loved ones, people you marry, religion, society. I mean, we mix it all up. The constructs. This is what means good behavior in society. This is what good behavior means in church. And those can be different things, but it can grab that spirituality that is ours and hang on to it. It can be very ego serving. And the spirituality can't have that. It's got to move. It has to flow. If we inside this beautiful temple called a body are going to move on from this world. And we have things to share with this world while we're here, and that's where that spirituality is a blessing to others. And then that we have this spirituality that will carry us further after this world. We don't know what's on the other side. I don't care what anybody tells me about what's on the other side. I just read a thing today in my feed. This was a scream, pathetic, but a scream. But there was a Mexican priest who was uh, selling land in heaven. Talk about a scam. But it wasn't that long ago
No.
when Martin Luther said, enough of the indulgences, enough. We don't have to pay to get to heaven. We don't have to pay to do these certain activities to make it to heaven. These payments don't take away sin. And he had a whole rant and rave that he wanted to have an honest discussion, argument in the church about. And the church tried to shut him down. Well, we know what happened there. Mm-hmm.
Right, but that was so interesting.
Same kind of thing.
Well, I wonder, because you're talking about that rub or that connection where we get stuck in the lower vibrations, the structures of religion or whatever you want to call it, structures of this world. And then there is, at least for me, and I think for a lot of other people, there's this inexplicable, especially when you're younger, inexplicable knowing of what the source energy that they're talking about is and what it is not.
Yes. And it's very young when we know. Very young. We can know that.
Yeah.
It gets damaged by the egos of other people and institutions. But there's something inside of each of us that it's encoded somehow. It's got to be.
So through this dream work, this is what's interesting to me. Okay. Doing the dream work, of course, the one thing I like about the dream work is that there is absolutely no interaction from anybody else. You cannot, as somebody who lives in this 3D world, and especially somebody who lives in the Western world where we think that we require all this proof and observable, whatever, you go to sleep. There is none of that. You cannot say anybody else is in your energy field when you are sleeping, right? Okay.
Right.
So you take that completely out of the equation. And yet I learned how to interpret these dreams. And when you interpret the dreams, the things that they say are just absolutely astonishing. It's like when I 6 months or so ago, when I started this, I got my one dream analyzed, and it's like, oh, this is how you feel about your father, this is how you feel about your mother, and this is an issue from childhood, and it's basically telling you need to work on it. And I'm like, what? I haven't even thought about that. And like, it took me
what's that coming up for? I got no problems.
Well, not only what's it coming up for, I was like, I didn't have any other words other than what, because it was like, I wanted to try and deny it and say, like, that can't possibly be. I haven't even thought about my father and so on long. But then I'm like, wait a minute, I remember that dream. Like, I remember that dream like it was a movie,
Yeah.
And so you can't deny it. So you have to,
it's just front and center.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the stuff that comes up is
well, and why would this stuff come up out of the blue unless it's already in there, just waiting to say, hey, pay attention, I'm over here, and this is what I really think.
Well, that was the other thing, is that the dream interpretation gets to, it will actually show what you really think and feel, regardless of what you say you think and feel, or anything that you're conscious of. Because, and it took me a while to realize that too, because as I got more dreams and analyzed, I was like, oh, yeah, that kind of is how I feel. But I literally never told anybody that, like, it's never come out of my mouth. It's never even been articulated, but definitely the feeling was there. So to have that kind of put in your face through a dream is just crazy.
Yeah.
But it all boils down to essentially whatever constructs that we came up with when we were young about how to cope with this world. And so we all create these experiences that cause us like distancing, either from our parents or from other people or from ourselves. And that's where then you get pushed into, like you experienced with the death of a baby.
Yes.
You get pushed into this place where you're disconnected from what quote reality is.
Oh,
And
yeah.
now you've got to find a way to connect back so that you can survive. Because I think it's very similar to, I know people are probably going to disagree, but basically it's very similar to alcoholism, is in that people drink because they need something that's not there in the
Self-medicating.
present. Right. It's self-medicating. But I think also the spirituality in a sense is too, in that we create situations where we are forced to be distanced from either really it's ourselves, right? But also
Yes.
people in our lives that we need love from or whatever. And by doing that, it forces us to go within and find that connection, that spiritual connection, because that's what we're really missing. And it is, once you get it or once you have a taste of it, it's like a drug. It's like, oh no, I know this is the answer. This is the better way. And I think everybody's on different levels of where do we go? Like, because some people use the drugs to get there, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah.
And as I'm looking at that, I'm seeing this budding spirituality taking place in me, as well as during that time, during that hard time, it's seeing that budding spirituality taking place, and then the alcohol saying, slow down, I can't handle this. I don't know that I want to go there,
Oh, okay.
and that's part of that self-medication.
So do you think that your alcoholism was to cope with the speed of the spirituality and with the life and the feelings that you were not wanting to deal with?
Yes.
Okay. So it was like twofold, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the spirituality had to grow in me. It had to, because I'd already been aware since I was young.
Yeah.
It had to grow. But there was that tension.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we live with that tension all of our life in
Mm-hmm.
dealing with trauma.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Mystical and Infamous podcast with the Happy Lion Center. Send requests for topic discussions, questions, and comments to podcast@happylioncenter.com. That's podcast@happylioncenter.com.